All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're diving into a truly mind-bending concept from Dr. Michael M. Nicolasius, specifically from his book, Language, Limits on Knowledge. We're looking at a pretty bold argument here. The idea that the everyday words we use, literally the sentences you're hearing from me right now, are fundamentally failing to describe objective reality. Let's figure out why.
I want you to ask yourself something kind of wild to start us off. Can the words coming out of your mouth right now actually describe reality? I know, it sounds like a trick question, but think about it. What if the vocabulary we use every single day is actually just a blurry lens? What if human language evolved mostly so we wouldn't, get eaten by predators and to help us cooperate, rather than to actually define the physical universe?
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the limits of our words, see how the ancient Greeks actually saw this coming, look at how physics totally breaks natural language, dive into the neuroscience of it all, check out AI and the language trap, and finally, look at escaping this linguistic cage.
Part 1. The limits of our words, and why they're basically a blurry lens on reality.
Think about how we talk. Everyday language basically gets stuck right at the bottom of the measurement ladder. We use vague nominal scales, which are really just arbitrary names and categories, or ordinal scales, where we say things are simply big or small. But real, true scientific understanding, that requires precise ratio scales, complete with an actual zero. Our natural language completely lacks this built-in measurement, which leaves us dealing with qualitative, blurry approximations.
Moving to part 2. The ancient Greeks saw it first, the very first formal systems.
And here's the crazy part. This isn't some new, trendy 21st century realization. We're talking over 2.5 millennia ago. Thinkers like Heraclitus and Parmenides realized that everyday speech was deeply deceptive. They saw that it was derived entirely from our limited human senses, full of contradictions and these fake artificial binaries. They literally argued that nature loves to hide behind our words. So to combat this, they advocated for entirely new ways of thinking. Heraclitus proposed logos, this rational principle of measure, and Parmenides proposed the immutable eon. They weren't just sitting around doing metaphysics. They were proposing the very first formal languages to map out nature accurately.
Which brings us to part 3. Physics breaks natural language. The quantum problem.
Let's fast forward to the 20th century. The brilliant physicist Niels Bohr really hit the nail on the head here. He exposed that classical language absolutely fails to capture quantum concepts like complementarity. I mean, when you try to describe a particle acting as both a wave and a solid object using everyday words, you literally tie yourself into logical knots.
Werner Heisenberg, the uncertainty principle guy, completely agreed with this. He noted that everyday terms like position or velocity are completely useless when you zoom way in on atomic reality. In our normal, macroscopic world, sure, a car has a definite position and speed. But at the quantum level, uncertainty proves those natural language concepts just don't map to reality at all.
And then, of course, Schrödinger. He warned us that our language constantly anthropomorphizes events, trying to force human-scale logic onto the subatomic world, and it creates absolute absurdities. We all know his famous thought experiment about trying to describe a cat that is simultaneously alive and dead. The paradox isn't really in the physics itself. The paradox is the failure of the words alive and dead to represent that physical state.
Just think about concepts like superposition, entanglement, or wave-particle duality. They prove that our traditional Indo-European grammar is fundamentally the wrong tool for the job. Our grammar is built on static nouns acting as subjects, distinct objects, and a straight, linear timeline. But the quantum universe is holistic. It's deeply interconnected. The very sentences we speak force a separation that physically might not even exist.
Okay, part 4, the neuroscience of linguistic limits. Let's look at the brain's bottleneck.
Check this number out, 1,000. That is the rough maximum frequency per second of an action potential. That's the brain's basic cognitive unit, the electrical pulse driving our whole nervous system. What this means is our biology operates at a very specific, limited speed. It is literally just too slow to capture the incredibly fast, microsecond mechanics of molecules and atoms. So what happens? Our brain is forced to just sample and summarize reality.
This whole process of summarizing is what Dr. Nicolasius calls the scala representationis, basically a ladder of representation. You start with raw sensory data, you build a perceptual representation, form a mental concept, and then, finally, you spit out a spoken word. But man, by the time the rich, complex data of the physical world climbs all the way up that ladder to become a word,
A massive chunk of reality has been distorted, heavily filtered, or just totally lost.
So, let's look at part 5, AI and the language trap, the mirror of machine learning.
It's wild because today we are seeing this exact human limitation perfectly mirrored in artificial intelligence. We hear a ton about AI hallucinations, right? Well, large language models hallucinate precisely because they are totally detached from physical reality. They rely entirely on predicting the next token, the next piece of human language. But as we've just seen, those human language tokens are already ungrounded, highly flawed representations of the world. By training AI purely on natural language, we've inadvertently built systems trapped in the exact same linguistic cage that limits us.
Finally, Part 6, Escaping the Linguistic Cage, the Necessity of Formal Systems.
So, what's the fix? If everyday words fail us, how do we get out? The solution, as Dr. Nicol Traces points out, is exactly what Parmenides proposed thousands of years ago, and what modern physics absolutely confirms today. To actually grasp objective reality, we have to transcend spoken words. We have to lean entirely on formal systems, math, calculus, statistics, and logic. These nonverbal systems are literally the only tools we have capable of ironing out the messy contradictions, the vagueness, and the emotional biases that are hardwired into human speech.
I want to end this explainer with a thought for you to carry around today. The philosopher Wittgenstein famously said that the limits of our language mean the limits of our world. If that's true, and we've just seen how biologically and fundamentally limited our everyday words really are, then what kind of vast, mind-blowing, hidden universe exists just outside the edge of your vocabulary? It's incredible to think about. Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself struggling to find the right words to describe the world around you.